Thank you. Darius tells me I should use the chair or the stage. I'm not a chair or stage person. I walk around and I say to people, so what's your story? And what's your story? Because I'm that story person too. Okay, my business card, because now I have to have a business card, is nonprofits are an actual business, and I have to be professional, and it says executive director. And what it really should say is, I was the person that wasn't smart enough to sit down when in the room somebody said, you're it. And here I am, 15 years later. What I do, I don't think is a hero. I don't look at it and say, this is magic. I don't look at this and say, wow, I'm doing something amazing. Last week, somebody had said to me, and I did a blog post on this, your passion is showing. And I looked around because I hate it when that happens. And you gotta fix your pants and make sure that nobody can see. And I thought about that for the longest time because 2 days later, one of my kids' teachers said in an email chain as we got some paperwork through, no, it's bullheadedness. I like that. Okay, it's not the passion. It's I take on every case that walks in the door as if it's our last. Every kid and every family that walks in the door as if that's the one that's going to close us because I pushed the boundary just a little bit too far to stand there and say, no, you're not going to do that. No, you will treat this family with respect. I don't care if they're gay, lesbian, pink, purple, orange, polka dotted, or from Mars. It doesn't matter. They stood up and they said, hey, I want to help this kid. We can't ignore that. There's almost 400,000 kids in foster care system in the U.S. Just a little bit ago, while you guys were mixing and talking down there, and Darius comes up and says, in 10 minutes we're going to go down there. I did a terrible thing. I try not to do this. But at the end of the week, I can't help it, and I do it. And I stopped at Wednesday. So Wednesday and Thursday until about 4:20 this afternoon, 79 kids came into my email box that need some sort of placement. And that's just from Wednesday. That doesn't include the 28 that we're actively working with on various different stages of permanency or temporary care or return home. That doesn't take into account the hour-and-a-half conversation that I had with the family yesterday in another state, that I sat there in absolute awe of what had just happened to them. And I am ready to jump into it with every lawyer behind me that I can find and every politician. But I have to pull myself back and to say, all right, let's assess this, let's look at this, and let's figure out the logical way of doing this. Because now a child's involved. And we have to pay attention to that. Okay? We started families like ours in 1999 by mistakenly inviting people over to our house for bottles of wine. And I quickly discovered that what was happening was social workers and attorneys and other people in the community were referring people to me to answer their questions. And the first time I realized, an adoption attorney called me up and said, hey, what's your take on this law that says? And I thought, well, I'm not the attorney. What the hell are they calling me for? I don't have any idea what that law says. I just read what the law is. I don't add anything else into it. This is what it says, so this is what we're going to do, unless the law is wrong. And then I'll stand there and say, wow, how is this benefiting this kid that needs to be in a permanent home? How is that helping this situation? And I get asked this a lot. I speak at a lot of different things. Well, if every person stood up and took one of these kids, we wouldn't need those gay and lesbian. You're right, we wouldn't. So are you signing up? Because I can teach class right now. It's not a problem. I don't even have to have the book anymore. I can drive it through and trust and believe I will have your home study done in less than 90 days and you placed in less than 6 months. And if you really push it, I'll have you finalized in less than a year. Now that's magical. Okay, because that doesn't happen that way. But if you're that driven to keep that gay and lesbian family stepping forward, fine. I'll help you. How many kids do you want? I have a sibling group of 6 in Northern California that needs to be placed in a permanent home. Now, one of them's really tall and on the way out, and that one there you can have do the tall windows, and there's some little kids that are in there. Any takers for any one of them? You don't even have to have a home study for these people, because 6 kids, if anybody wants 6 kids in one shot, whoa, the world will stop and do whatever is necessary to make that happen. And that's really what I do. I sit there and say, I've got a family that wants to be a resource for this kid. And we've got the kid that needs a family. So what is preventing that from happening? And we just overcome what those barriers are. In my head, that seems pretty simple. Hey, when CNN first called, I refused to take their phone call. It was like the 3rd or 4th phone call that I finally said, all right, fine, I'll answer the call, because I was sure they were going to do some slash and dice story on the foster care system or on adoption. And yeah, it's broken. I'll be the first one to stand up and go, wow, is it broken? But one more bad story isn't going to help. Let's talk about the successes, because one of the barriers that's out there for our kids is when we go out there just in general public and we say, so what do you know about foster care? Oh, what I usually get is, oh, those kids, they're always in trouble. They get expelled from school. They run away. The law is after them all the time. I can't help them. They're broken. Somebody needs to fix it. Well, if you can stand there and talk about it, then you're the person to fix it. And I tend to be that person that says, if I can recognize it's broken, then I need to be willing to stand up and say, all right, well, how do we unbreak it? How do we put a Band-Aid on it? If we can't do that, well, how do we tear it down and build something better? Because that's what needs to be done. Because these kids, they can't wait for us to be politically correct. The families aren't waiting anymore either. We've got both ends here. We have to put them together. And that's really what's going to solve this problem. It's not complicated. You just have to have the guts and the balls to stand there and say, hey, this is what needs to be done, and let's do it. And when CNN called, I just sat there and went, you just really don't want to do this story. This is going to open Pandora's box, and it did. And we got a lot of, shall I say, interesting emails that came in, fascinating phone calls. But I think you'd all be surprised how many of those we were also able to turn around by simply saying, fine, I'm not going to disagree with you. Which class can I sign you up for? How many kids do you want? And stammer, well, oh, is something wrong with your eye? Well, no, you don't have kids, do you? Well, yeah, I do. You saw them. They were in there. You talk to your kids and say, what's wrong with your eye? You bet I do. Well, I didn't get my homework done. Why? Well, something wrong with your eye? Well, what's wrong? Why didn't you get your homework done? Yep, it's not much different. Hey, take personal responsibility for it. Right? If you're going to call and complain to me about it, then you're going to take the responsibility to do something about it too. Because I'm tired. I want to go home. If you're going to solve the problem, great, then you solve the problem. You'd be surprised how many of them called back and said, fine, this is the state I'm in. Where can I sign up? And I helped them. Did we have to agree politically? No. I don't bring politics and I don't bring religion into my office. I really don't care. If you're going to step forward for that kid that needs that placement, I'm going to help you, because that's what needs to be done. Okay? Funny thing happened along this journey as we were putting stuff away. In 2003, we received a phone call from a social worker that had one of our kinds of kids. It took me a while to figure out our kinds of kids. What is our kinds of kids? And as she's talking, I start to clue in a little bit and go, "You have a gay kid?" "Well, I don't, but I have them on my caseload." Now, I'm in my office miles away, and I'm not thinking, and I say in the phone, "Why are we whispering?" And I hear myself say this, and then I said, "Why are we whispering?" "Well, not everybody in my office agrees." "Oh, really? I'm on my way." So we had a long conversation about this kid. We helped the family that was having the problem. We helped the social worker. We helped the kid. And I went back to my office, and we carried on more with more families and getting them the support systems they needed and getting referrals out and a shoulder to cry on. And a couple weeks goes by, I get another phone call. "I hear you work with some of those kids." Now I'm clued in. This time I said, "No, not really, but tell me the story." By the time 2004 came around, I kind of gave in and said, "All right, fine. We'll work with the kids too." We developed a program, the SAFE program, that's specifically for LGBTQ youth that are in foster care, who have a much higher rate of abuse and neglect, running away, not finishing high school, not even getting into college, not making it in to permanent families because they're in foster care and they get rejected there as well. So on top of working with families, we're now also working with kids. And we were fortunate enough to get a grant for that, so I've got a paid person finally in the office that can actually work on this stuff, so it's now off of my desk, because wow, is it a lot of stress. You have to hear their stories too. And it's heartbreaking. And you can't feed into it. You have to look at it and say, okay, that was the past. Now we have to deal with the future. We have to get you from where you're at now to where we need to be. And we have to work extra hard to do that. And sometimes that kid comes to us at 17 and a half. And we have 6 months. And maybe in that 6 months, we find a family. But they don't finalize that adoption until that kid's 23. That's okay. There isn't a timeline. You can finalize an adoption at any time. So we make those connections and we keep those kids together. And we try our best to keep in contact with those kids and those families. Sometimes we're successful at that and sometimes we're not. And I'm not going to sit here and tell you that we find placements for every kid. I'd love to tell you that that's what happens. But it's not. But we stand up and I tell every family and every kid the same thing. I'm never going to make a promise to you because promises get broken. I'm just going to do my best. And some days that's better than others. But it's not going to be perfect every single day. I'm very upfront and honest about it. Right? And it works. And then CNN put that on there. And I don't want to see that video anymore because I noticed in just a couple years I had much more gray hair. Wow, when did that happen? And all those kids in those videos, that was my house. They're not all mine. Okay, well, sort of they are, but they're not all mine. They're all my kids and all my families that are out there. All right? But I've lost track of the number of kids and families that we've dealt with over the years. And it's an amazing experience. And I have to tell you, I did not start off with this dream. Some days it's quite the nightmare. I don't get up every day and go, well, this is what I get to do. Some days I get up because my phone's already going away and I'm going, oh, this is what I get to do. Because somebody's in crisis somewhere and I can't ignore it. This isn't what I do. I'm a business person. I showed up here with a blazer. Okay? I'm dressed down. This is it. Okay? I'm a suit and tie person. I've had to learn not to be, and that's been a huge struggle. Okay? And I just looked at this and said, I have to take those skills and I have to do this. I can't ignore it. If I ignore it, they're just going to keep banging at the door. And who am I going to send them to? Who's going to pick this up and who's going to do this? So to finish this up, I did a posting yesterday off of this news story that was on Good Morning America with this young couple that had a baby boy yesterday. And this child was terminally ill and was not going to live long after birth. And 15 years ago, we received a very small grant. Now you're all wondering, what does that have to do with 15 years ago? I'm getting there. This is my story, okay? We received a small grant to do what it is that we do, and then North American Council of Adoptable Children sent me off on this training. And I met this woman the first night. It was just a terrible flight. I was tired. I hadn't slept. I just didn't want to be there. It's like, this is not what I want to do. How did I end up getting to this spot in my life that I'm doing this? And she was really tired too. And I said, we were supposed to match and talk to each other. And I said, why don't we just do this tomorrow? And then she said, oh no, we can talk about this now. And I said, so, how was your trip? And she said, well, I'm just a little tired because of the funeral we had. I'm thinking, you just came off of a funeral? And she started explaining that her job as that foster parent for her family was to be the foster parent of terminally ill children. I was horrified. I said to him, I need my suit and tie. This is not what I don't do this. This is not what I do. I'm a corporate person. This is not what I do. Okay? And I learned from her something that has always stuck with me, that stuck with me with this story that was in the news yesterday. That what they do is very important. They give a family to a child for just that few moments, those few days, those few weeks, those few months that child is in this world. That's the value of what she does. And every one of those days that I sit there and close my eyes at the end of the day, or sometimes at 10 o'clock in the morning, because I just got off the phone or out of a meeting on something, and I shake my head and go, I just can't do this anymore. It's too hard. There's too much. I think of her. I eat a pound of chocolate. I stomp around, yell and scream. People leave the room. Okay? I take a breath and I think of her. And I think of the courage that it took for her to do that. And the courage that it took for this family yesterday to do what it is that they did. Okay? And that's where I get my courage. That's where I feed off of that and stand up and go, ask myself the same question every single time I'm in that spot. If I don't do it, that's fine. But who do I call to say, it's your turn? You do it. And there isn't. So I just keep doing it. That's the story.